Here's 10 quick tips to help you kick your friends' butts whenever you play Settlers of Catan. So we've gathered all of internet's knowledge about Settlers of Catan, and now we're bringing it all to you. This video will be quick and right to the point, but if you're interested in more in-depth analysis, take a look in the description below. There we added a link with extra detailed content about this topic, plus 5 extra tips that we won't be able to crunch into this video. Alright, that's enough blubbering, let's jump right into it. Tip number 1, value of resources. All resources aren't created equally. In other words, some of them are more valuable than others. Generally, the value goes wheat, ore, brick, wood, and then sheep. Again, check the video in the description to know why in this particular order. This though could change depending on the numbers on the board, strategies, and a lot of other aspects of your particular game. Tip number 2, calculate the supply. Each number has a probability of it being rolled. For most versions of Catan, it's marked by these dots right here. Resources that have lower probability will be harder to come by, and that means that much more valuable. So trade with these resources carefully and be sure to not give them up easily. Tip number 3, choose your strategy. It's always a good thing to have a plan, even if at the end of the game you have to jump off it. This helps you make more calculated decisions and makes sure you don't shoot yourself in the leg while doing so. Just a quick rundown of few strategies. Number 1, the expansion. Try to build as many settlements as you can, and most importantly, try to get the longest road achievement. Concentrate on getting wood and brick. Largest army. Well, it's all in the title. Aim for the longest army achievement and be sure to be upgrading your settlements to cities as soon as possible. Concentrate on getting ore and wheat resources. Monopoly. This strategy means you try to control all sources of one particular resource and declare yourself as a king of it. This can be done with any resource, but is the strongest with wheat and ore, and usually most doable with sheep because people tend to ignore it. You most certainly will need a port for this strategy to work. Strategy number 4, collect them all. Gather your inner Ash Ketchum and try to catch them all. This means that you try to diversify your resources as much as possible. For this strategy, you'll need to focus on getting all resources, preferably in the order of their value. Tip number 4, diversify your numbers. Even though building your settlements on the same numbers has some benefits, we don't recommend it. Choosing the same numbers will mean that you will get resources fewer times in larger bursts. That will make you active just half of the game, and even when you get lucky and get your resources, you will be extra vulnerable to the robber. Tip number 5, Sheppards curse. Not everybody knows that originally ships were going to be included in the basic game. These ships were made from wood and sheep. Without any ships, there is a lot less need for sheep, but it still has 4 hexes on the island. During almost every game, there will be an excess of sheep at some point, but a person with a well-situated port can turn this into an advantage. This route is only worth pursuing if it's convenient within a player's larger strategy. Don't focus too heavily on acquiring sheep early in the game. They will come. They will always come. Tip number 6, invest smartly and safely. Never invest your resources in a plan you can't finish right away. When building roads, be sure there is no threat from the opposition to block you. A lot of players build roads and then only later realize they should have faced it the other direction. You'll be wasting your resources while other players will progress. Tip number 7, smart trading. Here's some rules you should follow while trading with other players. Number 1, never trade with winning player. That's a player who's 2 points away from winning. Number 2, almost never trade with a leading player. Number 3, don't trade with players that are competing for your spots. Number 4, always know what you want. Don't trade just because there is a trade. Number 5, don't play favorites and trade with everyone, if it's beneficial for you, of course. And the last one, always counter offer. Never take the first offer and try to lower the price as much as possible. You have nothing to lose. Tip number 8, optimize your robber placement. Robbers should always be placed on a hex that's owned by the leading player. The next thing you should consider is what's the highest producing hex that's not owned by you. Lastly, find what's the highest producing hex with a resource that you have tons of. This will mean other players won't be able to access it so easily and your resources will climb in value. Tip number 9, area control. After just few games, you'll notice that Catan isn't a very large island. There's very limited spots to go, and if 4 people are fighting for it, not everyone will get what they want. So it's important that you do. So use your roads to block the way for opposition. If you're sure you won't need that extra road piece later, you can optimize the ground you cover by placing 3 roads between your cities. Settlements cannot be placed adjacent to another. Thus, by placing a settlement opposite to another means that nobody else can get adjacent to that resource. And remember that you should always try to get yourself at least 1/4 of the map. Your pieces should be placed so that you can expand easily, and if in doubt or because you're placing early in the game, it's generally a good idea to place your roads pointing towards the edge of the board, as other players are less likely to build on the coast and block you. Number 10, the douchebag move. This is a bad one, a really bad one. If you value winning more than your friendships, this one's for you. If you're planning to use Monopoly development card to get, for example, wood resources, before doing that, trade away all of your wood and then use the card. So you would gain all of the wood resources plus all of the resources other players just traded you for the wood. Just do this at the end of the game, because it will be really hard to then trade with anybody if they just don't want to talk to you. And that's it. 10 practical tips you can use in your next game of Settlers of Catan. If that's not enough for you, we also have a super in-depth video with all of these tips explained in more depth. Plus that video has 5 extra tips, so be sure to check it out. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to Board Game Hangover. It's just good to know if it's worth making these kind of videos. That's it for now. Got to go and conquer some islands.